Hello everyone. In a few more days, we will be releasing the new version of the RadCORE project, version 7.0. So we are bringing more visual resources, many operational and productivity improvements, and optimization of resources already offered by RadCORE. In this video, I will demonstrate to you the main features, but I will leave a post in our group with the current list of all the details of the next version. Some new features will still be included, and I'm still working on them. But let's look at what new features we are bringing to improve, optimize, and increase productivity in the development of web applications with DELPHI and UniGrip. So, many visual improvements in RC elements to make the use of resources within RS elements even more interesting. So in this new version, we will bring an optimization here to the layout, where the components will now be divided into tabs for better organization of these resources. We are bringing some responsiveness improvements and improvements for when we are working on mobile. So these are resources that already existed and they were optimized. So let's see how this feature that I want to demonstrate to you works. Normally, when you're working with RadCORE, you will have these two options disabled here, so they will not be enabled by default. Okay. So imagine the following scenario. I'm going to enter here in mobile mode. I'm going to enter mobile mode, and I'm going to open it. I'm going to put it here. I'm going to imagine that I'm working with the device lying down, and then I'm going to use it here. I'm going to open any registration. I'm going to get the registration of cities, and you see that the distributed space is very tightly packed, right? You don't have enough vertical space to work. So in portrait mode, it's okay, there's no problem. But in landscape mode, you really can't work because the space is completely occupied by the components within the already predetermined space. So what can we do to improve here? You will be able to activate your TM control, and in layout, you will activate it on mobile. I want top panel off, and I want tabs off on mobile. I just go here to activate it. I will enter. Now, so I have here my top panel is the panel where you have my menu. It has the name of my company, and my tabs is my control of open tabs. So I'm going to go here in mobile. So you can see that I'm already with my text already off, but as I'm on portrait mode, okay, I still need to have access to my menu. Okay, so I can't remove my top panel here in this situation. Okay, but if you look and open a screen like this, let's open the same registration here. Let's open the form. Then you go watch What Now? That my top panel and my tabs have already been turned off. So immediately, when opening the screen, I have everything turned off. So now in landscape mode, I can actually better visualize the structure of my screen. So this is information that exclusively on mobile, you will optimize this screen display structure for the better of you, your client, who is opening your forms so that he has adequate visibility of that form.
Tá?
So here's a tip for this feature that is being brought to our version of RadCORE. Okay, so let's move forward with the new features. Well, so now at the level of responsive blocks, there has been an optimization of the reorganization of blocks. What does that mean? What benefits will this bring to us? I'm going to open the project here.
Tá? Então, ó, quando
When you readjust the screen, we now have a faster refresh rate for blocks. So this will be very easy to compare with previous versions.
tá?
So you will have this optimization in the restructuring, in the reorganization of the responsive blocks. So another new feature that comes in our version. We will also now have new attributes, new features and benefits, so that you can, let's say, visually debug the block information, so you can follow what you determined in design time mode and how what you determined is being rendered on the screen. So you can, in runtime mode, in runtime, you will be able to analyze this information.
Tá?
So within this idea of calls debug, I'm going to pull it here to the new examples part, where there will be a new specific example to demonstrate the calls debug attribute. So let's open our screen, our demo. I'll come here for different examples. And then you will see right here, debug blocks. So I will activate the debug block here. And then what will you observe?
Tá, ó.
There are some blocks on the screen here, and they are full of information, okay? So what is this information? So let's open the form here with all the blocks that I'm using. So all these blocks will have information. So I have information to work with here with 6 columns. And here's my calls debug parameter. The one at the bottom, I have determining that they use 4 columns each here to become 4, 4, 4, totaling 12. And I'm determining that I want to debug this block. As I also have here, as you will notice that I also have it here already using 2, right? 2 blocks for this guy here. I'm going to be using 2 blocks for this guy here. I'm going to use 3 for this guy here. And I'm going to use 5 for this one. 5 with 3, 8 with 10 with 2, 10 with 2, 12. So there's here my 12 blocks, 12 blocks, 12 blocks, all of them using debug calls.
Tá?
So what will you observe?
Tá, ó. Então,
I have it here in the parent of my debug calls. It will receive here what position it has, how wide it is, and how high it is. And then I will have it for each given block here in my bug calls. It will show me what the name of my block is. So I will have here my block 10, 20, 30, 40 in the sequence of my blocks. How many columns is it displaying? So there are 6 and 6 here. I have 4, 4 and 4 here. I have 2, 2, 3, and 5 here. The position they are in, the X and Y, the starting position they are in, the width they occupied, and the height they occupied.
tá? Então,
You can observe all this information, and when you hover your mouse over the block, calls debug will place a hint here with the complete contents of our elements within your block, so you can see the complete information of your block for you at runtime. Being able to track what you determined at design time and what is happening at runtime, including attributes that are dynamically added by RadCORE for internal control. So, all of this here, you can now follow it at runtime so you can study and understand it better. It's because your block suddenly isn't doing what you determined. So you can analyze if you made any mistake here in the block syntax or something like that, and you will be able to learn better by following the configuration you placed for each block at runtime. Perfect? This new feature that RadCORE 7.0 will be bringing to us is really cool.
Então, ó,
So, let's keep following our details here, and then we'll go. The new calls offset attribute to determine the spacing between blocks within another block. Well, this is a very interesting feature that we are also bringing to the new version, and we will also have here in the new model examples where we will be showing how the new calls offset works. So I'm going to open my URC blocks demo here, and then I will have it here in the calls offset tab.
tá?
So I have some blocks here, and within these blocks, other blocks for us to demonstrate the resource. So what do I have here in my first block? So my first block, I simply have my hrechilds and my conventional calls without any determination. So I have all the information I need here inside it.
Tá?
Now inside my 1050 block, I have the information calls offset 0.
Tá? Então, eu vou...
So if you notice, I will have within these 4 blocks that are within my parent block here, all of them in these 4 blocks will have an offset of 0. And then I will demonstrate to you, for each group of blocks, I will add them here 5 pixels. So these ones here are with offset 0, these ones will be with offset 5, these ones here will be with offset 10. Remembering that the RadCORE standard, which is a web standard, so to speak, normally we are using 20 pixels for the offsets, which is the spacing between blocks, both on the margins and between blocks and others. And here we are demonstrating that you will be able to internally reconfigure this distance, this offset.
Tá?
So the penultimate one is here with 15, and ours, our last list here of blocks like that, I didn't determine, that is for it to work, use the standard, which is 20 pixels. So executing like that, let's see here, the example RC blocks like that. I'm going to come here to my calls offset tab and see what result you will get. So my calls offset 0, the blocks were completely filled inside my pi block. I will have here the F7-5, the F7-10, the F7-15, and the F7-20. So we will now have this determination, all the blocks within this spacing that we determined with calls offset. Let's continue here with our new resources. Let's go then, calls offset we just saw. Let's go back here. So we will now also have the new fit parameter used inside the hrchild attribute. What will fit do? So it will remove the bottom offset, okay, when there is a certain use of no border. Okay, so this is also an interesting feature, okay, it's It's not for any situation. There are specific layout situations in which you will be able to use this. So what exactly is the fit parameter?
Tá?
So let's take my tab on the border here, and I'll have my example here with the fit. So by default, I'll open the customer record here, so we can demonstrate this here. So this table here, this card here, it has HR child. Okay. This HR child, what is he going to do? He is going to expand my block here according to the content of the inner blocks. So if I come here to mobile mode, my card here, it expands vertically by the sum of these blocks that are inside it. And you will always have this last offset here, which is the default, to give final spacing within the last block that HR Charts is using.
Beleza?
So what will fit do? Let me close my edit here. The feature will remove the space from the final block, and it will just bring everyone together. It will not give a lower margin when you're using this feature. So there are several ways to achieve the same result, but there is one more layout option within the layout possibilities that RadCORE offers. Beauty? Well, let's move on. So we are bringing some new features to the grid. We will be able to turn off the menu that is used in the grid columns. This was a user request. And there was also an optimization of the data export process. For those who don't know, RadCORE has within its resources the possibility for you to fully export your grid.
Tá?
UniGuide by default, if you open UniGuide Data Export, it only exports the current page and RadCORE does not. RadCORE can fully export the data that is being presented. So this process had, let's say, resources that were wasting, right? Something unnecessary. And we brought here an optimization in the current version in 7.0 to optimize this data export process.
Ok? Bom,
New attributes.
tá?
So this one is cool, guys. This one is really interesting, the new attributes that RadCORE is bringing.
Tá? Então,
So let's go, starting with the new button group attribute. The button group is an interesting feature. UniG itself has a similar feature, Bootstrap has a similar feature, but we always have to try to create something to optimize and give us more productivity, as well as a cool look. As always, you have to worry about the look. Okay, so let's go. We're lipstick group. Okay, let's open our example here, our lipstick demo, so that there are already several examples of buttons. We added them here. But okay, so I'm going to bring here a model of lipstick group manually, and the dynamic lipstick group is, so the manual lipstick group is nothing more than you actually having as many buttons as you want to group.
tal. E
And these buttons, they will be using specific classes to be able to visually adjust the edges of the buttons.
tá?
And we are using our parameter here, our scale attribute, to be able to precisely divide the scaling of these buttons so that they are all the same size within the scaling process to bring responsiveness to them. As for our dynamic button grouping pattern, it will bring something more direct. You will determine how many buttons you want, and you will simply repeat the line lipstick group, lipstick group, lipstick group. In this case here, I'm placing 3 buttons, and I determine what icons I want each button to have and what the class is that they will use. That each of these buttons will use beauty. Well, so what code does this button have here? I have a click event inside it that will analyze which button will be clicked and execute a certain code. So what is the button group at runtime going to do? It will replicate this button, and it will replicate its click event. So whatever name you give to this button here, it will create a sequence. So the default button remains as it is. It will be option 0, and then hardcore, as we determined there, that there will be 3 buttons. It will create buttons 1 and 2. So buttons 0, 1, and 2 will be left. Okay? So everything is very simple. There's nothing mysterious here. They are native NIGI buttons. As you know, hardcore only uses a native NIGI component. Based on them, you will be able to do all the features that we are demonstrating. So let's open our demo of buttons and analyze what we are bringing here. Then rendered, we will have the manual grouping and the dynamic grouping. So the dynamic grouping will automatically receive the copy of the buttons, and then it will execute code here, button 0, button 1, button 2. So the buttons that we selected will be executed according to the rendering that we made. It is also a very interesting feature and very simple to use. This is one of the best features of version 7.0. So we are bringing the input add-on here.
Tá?
The input add-on is a feature that exists in some HTML templates, and I reproduce this feature into hardcore without using HTML. This is another premise of hardcore that we have that we don't use. We try not to use HTML so that everything is simple, so that everything is easy, everything is visual, and you can work natively and hard to develop your web applications.
Ok?
So the add-on will bring some layout models for editing data. Let's see what we will have as resources in our new add-on example. We will have the input add-on in the miscellaneous example, and let's see what we will have here, people like Gav. The layout is interesting. So edge on is nothing more than an editing field where you will have such an icon anchored to the left or right, okay? And you will do this in a very simple way. When rendering this, it is very simple. Native UniGui components. Okay, guys? And obviously, receiving the visual rendering that hardcore offers.
Tá?
So you will be able to create add-ons with texts, add-ons with icons. You will be able to place add-ons on the left, on the right, and you will have some very interesting dynamic features, such as the new date selection component. So you will see here that it is already masking my date entry, masking my time entry, and our new spin edit. So by clicking the button, you will open the date selection box in a very different way. So I will be able to manipulate the year I want to use, the month I want to use, and the day.
Tá?
So you have selected your date, it will enter normally. If you want to use the standard calendar, there will be a little button here that will expand the standard calendar for you. You will also use it in the same way. Okay? Time selection, where you will also be able to use the arrows up. This on mobile, the user just needs to tap with their finger on the arrows. They will be able to select a date and time very quickly and use this resource within your project. And the new spinner edit that you will also have here. It has a much more interesting look to make such a selection of numbers. All these resources, people, there are parameters that you will be able to use and optimize in some way.
Tá.
So let's open our input add-on demo for you to see as a simple thing.
Então,
Everything here is standard UNIGI component. So here I am uniform numbered it to input monetary values, fractional values.
vários, tá?
And what does RadCORE need to generate that for you? That's it. So you're going to write the attribute, right? The input is from. And then I'm going to say, look, I want to put our $sign on the left. And that's what you're having here in return. So it is a native NGI component. But RadCORE visually renders this here for you. So all these resources, you will notice that they are native components. So with native, you need it here from Unigui and such. And then it will be bringing here input add-on. I added the far envelope, the representation of our source too. So here it will detect that it is the icon you are wanting to demonstrate the weight input. So I just changed my side here to write our date edit, simply input add date, and then you will have here in the input add-on, let's see its parameters here. On the keyboard here, the FTU, the input add-on will have some parameters. So when using date, you will be able to select day only, month only, year only. Okay, so if you want to make some selection within your project, you just want to select the month, just add it here, month only.
Tá?
If you want to select just the year, right, to record in a specific field, just the year, you will put the parameter and it's only there, it will return to you just the selection of the year. Okay guys, good team two, nothing much, just input, it's from on time, and RadCORE will render what you see here, the time icon and the dynamic time selection. And finally, our spin add-on, where you will have parameters to determine the increment step you will have, the value minimum acceptable and maximum acceptable value. So you will be able to pass these parameters so that the input add-on can use it. And then when I get here to 0, it will stay at 0. And when I get here to 10, it stays at 10. It doesn't exceed this number. Okay? You will be able to work on the entire layout, and then I will be able to use my input add-on using my current theme. So RadCORE's current color theme is this. So automatically here, the input add-on was rendered with the default theme below. I determined it to be white. This one is the default. When I don't determine anything, it will render like this. When I determine that I want mine according to my theme, and here I'm determining it with white colors. Okay, so all of this here will be manipulable. It's in the layout, it's the input that you're going to use. Okay, and finally guys, the input is color select. Okay, so we can now use a color selection such that you will determine which color you want to select, some project that you will use this color selection. So there are several applications for you to customize the layout of your application, which you want to offer your client, something different. You will also be able to use the color selection. And the color input add-on isn't great either.
Tá.
So I determine here the type color, side left, and then I determined here for this first add-on my default color. As you could see at the beginning, it opened with a reddish color, right when I opened it. I'm going to close it here again. So you see that it starts with a predetermined color. The others I didn't determine, they started with a black color. Okay guys, by the way, right, we don't even need to comment on this. Everyone RadCORE resources are responsive. So all add-ons will respond automatically because they are all inside the block. So they will work with their default responsiveness. Okay? So use this feature to optimize your form screens. Let's continue with the news.
したを。
We will now have a new parameter, the off parameter, for the anchored attribute. So for those who've been following RadCORE's resources, the anchor will bring us a dynamic anchoring. So for example, I'm going to take this guy here. This citizen here is a dashboard model, and I have my HTML sales here, and I have this item using the angle, so my courage. So now I'll be able to use the off parameter, this off. It will receive such a value, and I will be able to use off global. I will be able to give off button, top, left, and right. So you will have all the options. So I'll be able to use it here in case if I use, for example, off 15, it will anchor this component of mine by expanding, and it would be equivalent to the client, okay? If I were using dynamic alignment, okay, then it will do something wrong, client, okay? But it will automatically provide 15 pixel spacing around my component. This is what our new off parameter will bring to us within our visual resources. Okay, let's go. New parameter x mobile xy. Mobile xy for the center attribute. Good for those who have been following RadCORE, right? We have within RadCORE resources of dynamic alignment. And theirs is the parameter that does dynamic centering of components within the screen of our forms. Now we're going to have a very interesting feature, and I created a specific example to demonstrate this feature to you. So what's new here? Let's open our example here, which is our demo. Complex examples, login layout, such. So here's an example that resembles a login screen, okay? There's nothing operational here, it's just layout, but you'll see that it opens anchored to the vertical center of my form and anchored to the right. Just like when I pull up my browser, my data entry panel. You're following along, okay? Now, when I go on mobile, see what happened. It automatically centered. So now I'm not centered anymore. It's now centered vertically and horizontally. It's no longer anchored to the right. So if I go back to my desktop, it's anchored again on the right. Guys, this is a very useful resource, and the work you will have to do to create this resource is zero, because these items that RadCORE brings to us are precisely to make things easier. So here is my panel used for my login, okay? And see what attributes this panel will have. So I'm going to have my align attribute, where I'm going to align this guy to his parent. He's going to be aligned to the right, which is exactly what we left here on the right side. And he's going to have an indentation of the width of this block minus the default set of the responsible blocks. That is the block. So you can understand the situation well. It will be anchored to the right. It comes here, but I set it to retreat just from the width of this panel here. So it will anchor, it will reduce, it will indent the width of this panel, and it will indent another 20 pixels, which is our default offset. This is what will happen at runtime with the align attribute, okay? And then I'm giving the last command here when I'm in mobile mode. I don't want to run a line, or in other words, mobile off. So a line stops working when I'm in mobile mode, and then our center will come into action.
Tal.
Our center, you will see here that it is centering this panel according to its parent. It will be centering it along the y-axis, but if I go into mobile mode, I will change it to the XY alignment that is completely centered inside the skin. Guys, there are just two attributes that make all this magic you see there.
Tá.
So it's a resource that in practice would require coding. If it were to do this here in CSS, it would be another huge job for you to put it together from here. So only with these two attributes can you obtain this resource that you are seeing here at runtime.
Tá.
So another interesting resource for you to use within RadCORE.
Bom,
I have just demonstrated the issue of using the default offset for a line, and we will have some additional simpler features, but they are still interesting, such as no focus, which automatically applies blur. That is, it leaves the component when the component receives focus. RadCORE already brings several improvements for creating page controls with a more elegant look, with a cooler look within our projects.
tá.
So for example, we have a register here of clients that we have already opened just now. It's so yours. I open my screen here. This is Niggy's standard page control, but the RadCORE one, we have resources to optimize, right? Give another layout like this. So we will see here, as you can see, we have several models: tabs, button, border, femiborder, femifull. All of these here are models that you can use to create a new look for the page control.
Tá. É,
And we have our standard demo where I'm going to demonstrate our new feature. So let's open our demo of VS, BSP, and Beast tabs.
tabs, tal.
So we already had these models available here, and we are now bringing this page control model for you. Notice that here I have a rendered model with a text icon only with an icon. You're free to see this. We are going to work. The little border will follow the current color theme, and we will have a fade effect when changing pages.
Tá.
Let's see now at project time, guys. What we have here defined our demo.txt. As you can see, all these resources are page controls. There is the only unique page control. They are all page controls, but we have the RadCORE's dynamic rendering capabilities. So what you're going to have to do now with this new feature is simply this here. We're going to have RC tabs here. And you say, what is the name of the page control that you want to render? Simple. So at design time, I have this layout here with my tabs. It's in here. And when rendering RadCORE, simply replaces the default UniGui tabs with the new visual model and with the fade effect.
Perfeito?
So more cool feature for version 7.0.
Zero.
Well, guys, in addition to the visual resources that we see here, we are also bringing new functions. So we are going to bring here the function to send WhatsApp. Something very simple, okay? But it is being brought here in the new version of RadCORE, here in send such and such, and then the little tab of WhatsApp will simply be opened. It's nothing mysterious. It's for you to use, right? Send a message here. Okay, but it's still another interesting resource for us to be demonstrating in our new version of RadCORE.
tá?
So some internal functions that can also be used with you. I won't go into details. All of this will be in the future documentation.
Tá? Bom,
Forcing here and remembering the new attributes that we created. So new examples will be displayed with the new version we have already seen. All the exes, bug calls, tabs, the input add-on, and the button. I just added a new resource here at the request of user, where we will have a dashboard like I got here. Our hospital dashboard is a model, right? A ROS Pro dashboard. And we are going to use it here as a model with a background. So if you want to create a dashboard with the bottom line, you'll have this demo here for you.
beleza? Bom,
Within all our resources, various improvements, bug fixes, obviously we detect some bugs, some users detect some bugs and report them to us, and we make improvements and corrections in a timely manner.
tá? Então, vários detalhes estão sendo trazidos também de correção e melhorias na nossa nova versão, tá? Bom, gente, aqui nós estamos finalizando, tá? A demonstração desses novos benefícios, desses novos recursos que o RadCORE está trazendo aqui, tá? Com a nova versão, tá? E em breve, alguns outros recursos ainda serão incluídos na nova versão 7.0. Ok? Um grande abraço a todos, obrigado e até breve.